Hey guys, Walker Horn's first career shot was a unique moment for the veteran and for Kentucky. Let's see more news about the Cats. The night at Rupp Arena began with the predictable script of an easy victory and ended with a chapter that will be remembered in the season's annals. And above all, in the memory of those who wore the Kentucky jersey not for status, but for the love of the game. It was just another game among so many that make up an intense college calendar, until Walker Horn transformed the ordinary into something much bigger than the score itself could convey. The point guard, who joined the team without a scholarship, patiently waited for his moment. It arrived in the final seconds. And that's exactly why it became so special. Kentucky was already dominating Tennessee Tech with authority, imposing the rhythm, distributing points, involving the entire team in a symphony of efficiency and control. The final score, 104-54, speaks for itself. But the story of that night doesn't end with the number. It comes alive in those remaining 0.8 seconds on the clock, when Cam Williams found Horn open. A quick pass, a moment of tension, his body off balance, the defense trying to contest the impossible. Horn didn't have time to adjust his feet, measure the arc, or take a deep breath. He shot because it was what needed to be done. He shot because, in that instant, basketball was pure impulse, courage, and reward. The ball traveled, found the basket, and ignited a fire of joy in Rupp Arena. The reaction was disproportionate to the circumstance, or perhaps perfectly proportional to the story hidden behind it. Reserves exploding from the bench, the crowd in ecstasy, teammates running toward the point guard as if that shot were worth a championship. Walker Horn, who so often only observed, became the protagonist. His first basket as a Wildcat was an act of affirmation. It meant more than 3 points. It meant he belonged there. And the symbolism didn't stop at the brilliance alone. Shortly after, Zach Toe, also a player without a scholarship, converted a free throw that completed a rare night. Every Kentucky player who stepped onto the court scored. A simple statistic, but loaded with collective meaning. In a team still shaping its identity, Mark Pope saw his depth respond, his bench vibrate, his reserves perform with the same intensity as the starters. It's scenes like these that build chemistry, confidence, and culture, intangible elements, but fundamental as December progresses and the season takes shape. Kentucky leaves the game with a 5-2 record that says a lot about its current moment. An offense that flows intelligently, a defense that suffocates, and now more than ever, a sense of group that strengthens in small narratives. Horn may not be the name plastered across national debates, but games like this reveal silent potential. If there's room for growth, there's also room for surprise. And Walker Horn has already shown that he knows how to turn seconds into eternity on the court. Perhaps this was just the first chapter. And if this is just a prologue to something bigger, Kentucky will already have a lot to tell. Because at Rupp Arena, on a night when everyone scored, it was the player who waited the longest for his moment who shone the brightest. And Mark Pope certainly took note of that carefully. Mark Pope, the Wildcats coach, has decided to point his players in the direction of an emotional and historical compass. He is convinced that the glorious future of this program will not be built solely on raw talent or refined technical skills, something he knows he possesses, but on the visceral essence that defined the unforgettables, that legendary 1992 team whose grit and determination still resonate in the stands of Rupp Arena. The comparison may sound like an easy rhetorical device, but for Pope, it represents something much deeper, a playing philosophy that transcends courts and generations. When he talks about capturing the essence, spirit, and commitment of those players, John Pelfrey, Richie Farmer, Darren Feldhouse, and Sean Woods, he is not romanticizing the past out of nostalgia, but rather try to shape the present and future of his team based on timeless principles. The message is clear. Titles are won with courage and sacrifice, not just with precise passes or acrobatic dunks. The current context, however, demands this approach. After two tough losses against Louisville and Michigan State, the current Kentucky roster faces an existential challenge: finding its identity. Yes, they have shown flashes of brilliance, as evidenced by the 104 points scored in a recent game, but there's a glaring gap between individual potential and the collective cohesion needed to compete on the bigger stages. This vacuum is what Pope seeks to fill by evoking the memories of a group that, in a dark moment in the program's history, rebuilt it brick by brick, literally from the ashes of the NCAA-imposed suspension. "It's not just what they did, but how they did it," said Pope, emphasizing that the magic of that team was not only in the final results, but in the brutal and relentless process they went through. The workouts were famous for their intensity, described by many as veritable sessions of physical and mental torture. It was a culture of shared suffering, where every drop of sweat shed signified a step toward collective redemption. And it was this grit, this willingness to look beyond individual comfort and embrace suffering in the name of the team, that transformed that group into icons. Pope knows his speech isn't just poetic. It's also strategic. As the season progresses and important matchups approach, North Carolina and Gonzaga are just after Thanksgiving, the coach needs his players to internalize this mentality. He wants them to see the unforgettables not as distant figures or sanctified by time, but as living examples of how success is forged in the heat of continuous and tireless effort. Every free kick converted under pressure, every fierce battle for possession, every extra minute of practice invested without complaint. All of this is part of that invisible alchemy that transforms talented teams into championship teams. Pope's choice to invoke this specific chapter in Kentucky's history has another important dimension. It serves as a reminder that crises are part of the program's DNA. The 1992 team emerged from one of the institution's darkest periods, when Kentucky's reputation seemed irreparably tarnished. But instead of succumbing to the weight of adversity, those young men decided to rewrite the narrative, rising as symbols of resilience. Now, as the current roster navigates its own turbulence, Pope hopes they will find inspiration in that journey. There's an almost literary beauty to it. The idea that the past can be both a beacon and a safe harbor. For current players, hearing directly from those legends of the past, absorbing their stories and learning from their experiences is more than a motivational exercise. It's an opportunity to connect with something greater than themselves. It's a chance to realize that Kentucky's legacy doesn't belong only to the celebrated veterans or NBA stars who came from there, but to everyone who wore the blue and white uniform with pride and determination. Of course, translating that inspiration into concrete results on the court is a monumental challenge. Next week will be crucial to test whether Pope's speech will find practical resonance in the team's performance. Matches against teams as traditional as North Carolina and Gonzaga will require not only refined technique, but also emotional fiber. It will take more than skill to overcome opponents with equally rich traditions. It will require demonstrating the kind of grit and unity that made the unforgettables eternal. If Pope manages to ignite that flame in his players, the season could take on new dimensions. Share your opinion. The recruiting machine at Kentucky continues to spin steadily, and this time the move has defensive weight. Cornerback Braxton Urquhart, a JUCO player and rated 3-star, announced his commitment to the Wildcats, adding another valuable piece to the Lexington chessboard. In a 2026 cycle still under construction, where each edition represents more than just ranking numbers, Urquhart's arrival is the kind of strategic choice the program usually values: ready physique, competitive experience, and concrete room for immediate improvement. Urquhart possesses a profile that the coaching staff historically appreciates in the defensive perimeter: length to contest aerial balls, physical stature for contact on more aggressive routes, and mobility built on community college fields, where the learning curve is often higher than many people imagine. Ranked as the 96th best JUCO prospect in the country and the 10th best cornerback in that category, according to 247 Sports, the player arrives surrounded by realistic expectations, but with room to become an important name in a sector that always demands constant replacement. His trajectory also helps explain why Kentucky insisted on recruiting him. A native of Alabama, Urquhart graduated high school as a prospect in the class of 2023 and developed at Butler Community College after playing for prestigious Hoover High School. This dual experience, first in a competitive grassroots program, then in a demanding JUCO environment, builds a kind of player who arrives more mentally mature, more accustomed to physical confrontation, and less intimidated by the leap in level to top-tier college football. The choice of Kentucky gains even more value when considering the context of offers surrounding him. UTEP, Colorado State, Western Michigan, and Samford, among others, tried to enter the competition, but the commitment to the Wildcats confirms that the program still has persuasive power, especially when it comes to athletes ready to contribute more quickly than most recruits fresh out of high school. With his arrival, Kentucky rises to 14 commitments in the class of 2026, currently ranked 69th nationally. The number may not impress at first glance, but what matters at this moment is the foundation, and the defensive foundation has just gained another important stone. Urquhart may not arrive with many eyes, but solid constructions also begin away from the spotlight. If the Wildcats defense intend to evolve in the next 2 seasons, having a cornerback with real field experience, a developed physique, and a hunger for roster space can be a silent difference maker. Let's see how this plays out. Leave your comments.